PPC. I'm going to take a second and go over an article that I wrote a little bit ago called 8 Tips for Successful Pest Control PPC Campaigns. So it's just basically 8 tips on doing pay-per-click. If you don't know what pay-per-click is, PPC, it's basically advertising on mainly Google. You can also do it on the Bing Yahoo network or on Facebook, but for pest control, Google is usually the first place that you want to start. These days, I don't know if I'd say most, there are a lot of really, really small pest control companies, but most of the larger pest control companies are going to do a decent amount of pay-per-click. And the reason for that is that it's really fast. It's a lot faster than organic SEO rankings. It's more consistent, and you can really define what your cost per new customer is and scale things out from there. So tip number 1 that I have is setting up tracking numbers for each one of your categories. So if, for instance, you're going after bed bugs, termites, mice, rodents, exterminator, ants, spiders, things like that, we would recommend that you set up a separate phone tracking line with maybe call tracking metrics, which is what we use a lot, or call rail, anything that allows you to have a separate line. It only costs a little over $1 a month per line, plus the talk time on the phones, depending on how many phone calls you get. But for a couple bucks, you can really improve your tracking. So you can say, hey, regardless of how you have your campaigns set up in Google Ads, you can very easily say, okay, like this campaign is for termites and we spent $400 this month and we got 2 customers. And you can do that type of analysis and say, yeah, let's do more of that, or let's turn off like rodents because it's not working for us. Along with that, tip number 2 is set up unique landing pages for each one of your tracking phone numbers. Otherwise, your tracking is not really going to work super well unless you use like a dynamic landing page, which is a little more complicated to figure out. But for a starting advertiser, just have a separate landing page or a dynamic landing page for each category. So all of your traffic from termite stuff is going to show termites and has a termite phone number. That's the important thing, regardless of how you do it, is that you want to have a one-to-one with your campaign, your tracking number, and your landing page. Another thing to do is enable auto tagging in Google Ads. So basically what that is it allows you to pass extra information across the URL string. So that allows Google to send things like, what keyword did they come from? What was your ad positioning? What campaign, ad group? A lot of basic information. Another thing that comes with that is basically Google's, with the auto tagging, you can do this number 4 trick here, which is appending your Google Click ID, your G-CLID value. And if you do that, you can actually do a full feedback loop. So basically when a click happens, they go to your landing page, you can capture all this information through a web form, or if you use like call tracking metrics or call rail, you can put this little script on your page, which will feed that information that comes off the URL parameters, like hidden info. It stores it into the record of the phone number, and then you can do a merge back into AdWords. So you can say, okay, these phone calls came from, these conversions came from this campaign or this keyword, and set up more advanced types of columns so you know kind of what your ROI is. Some of the trick number 5 is advanced metrics. So a lot of our pest control stuff, we're tracking revenue, because I can put like revenue into call tracking metrics, for instance, and then shoot that back into Google Ads. Number of sales, you can count that as a conversion. So you can make multiple systems kind of talk to each other, and that can be cool. And another way to do it these days is actually with Google Data Studio, because they have built-in integrations now. So you can just say like call tracking metrics or call rail, let's have it talk with Google Ads, and then you can merge information there without even needing like much programming knowledge or anything. So you can really kind of match up data a lot better there. This is an example here. It's a little tricky to see, but this is showing, hey, like this group right here, they spent, it was $60 a sale. They got 13 sales. Here's the revenue. So these are custom columns that you can add into Google Ads. And then tip number 6 is focus on campaigns that bring you the highest return on investment. So it seems pretty obvious, but sometimes people will just continue to have campaigns on because they feel like they should, but it's not working very well for you and you're not being that competitive. And if your ad budget is limited, suppose you only have $2,000 or $3,000 or $5,000 a month to spend on your campaigns, you're better off taking that extra $1,000 that you were spending and putting it to something that has like a 4 to 6x return on investment than you are spending it on something that is like break even, where you're really losing time and energy and can't invest in other things because of that. Another tip here, a lot of very beginning pest control advertisers get really caught up in things like, what is my click-through rate? What is my cost per click? What are my impressions? Things like that are important, but those are kind of considered low-level metrics. And you really want to put your business owner hat back on and be like, okay, this is making me money or it's not. I can scale this or I can't. So at the end of the day, if the cost per call and cost per sale numbers make sense, roll with it. And if it doesn't, then revamp, and don't expand your ad spend until you know you're making money. Because sometimes people will be like, oh, I heard from this conference that I need to be spending $20,000 a month in this city. But if you're going to spend 20 and make 10, something's wrong. Like, you didn't take the time to build out your campaigns and figure all that stuff out. So don't expand before you should. Let's see. So as far as benchmarks for performance, let's see. So a good lead to sales conversion rate is about 40 to 60%, so closing about half of them, and cost per sale of $80 to $100. It just kind of depends. I mean, you can easily a lot of times get a phone call for $18 to $35, and then kind of depends on what your closure rate is from there. But it really depends on the service that you're selling. So it's kind of hard to say, if bed bugs are more expensive, you're going to pay more for that, or termites, but they also yield more, and that's why, and Google knows that, and that's why your cost per click is more expensive, or your cost per lead. But the cost per sale and ROI numbers are kind of more important. If you have a question or you just kind of need help, feel free to reach out to us just on our website, leadppc.com. You can go to the contact us section. You can live chat us, kind of whatever. If you have questions, feel free to reach out, even if it's just kind of brainstorming. Thanks.